what got me involved. And then I looked at, and I see the results. It's horrible. It's a killing field. 5,000 soldiers a week on average. And we want to stop that. We both want to stop that for a lot of reasons, but I would say that is my number one reason.
Why do you think Russia, that we will get Russia to accept a deal that also Ukraine and Europe is willing to?
I think so, yeah. I do. I believe they will accept, and I think we're going to get this over with. I hope so, soon.
Mr. President, you continue to lack support from NATO allies in your goal of obtaining Greenland. How will you proceed if you don't get that support?
Well, Greenland's going to be interesting, but that's for another day. I think we need that for international peace.
What are you expecting of your
And if
allies?
you don't have that, I think it's a big threat to our world. So I think Greenland's very important for international peace. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, this morning in Truth Social Post, you used the words, Vladimir, stop. That seemed like a slightly different message, a personal message. What is your level of frustration with President Putin?
I didn't like last night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired. And I was not happy with it. That's what I meant, and that's, you know, what it said. I assume that's what you mean.
Sorry.
Yeah.
If the bombs keep falling, will you consider additional sanctions toward Russia, or what will you do if President Putin...
I'd rather answer that question in a week. I want to see if we can have a deal. No reason to answer it now, but I won't be happy. Let me put it that way. Things will happen.
Mr. President, why are you not putting more pressure on Russia? I know a lot of Europeans...
Putting a lot of pressure. You don't know what pressure I'm putting on Russia. They're dealing. You have no idea what pressure I'm putting on Russia. We're putting a lot of pressure.
Can you maybe tell us that?
We're putting a lot of pressure on Russia, and Russia knows that, and some people that are close to it know, or he wouldn't be talking right now. The Prime Minister understands that better than anybody. He wouldn't be talking right now. He's talking, and we're putting a lot of pressure. I think he wants to make a deal. We're going to find out very soon, but it takes two to tango, and you have to have Ukraine want to make a deal too, and they're being hit very hard, and I do believe they want to make a deal.
Mr. President, you said that the Ukraine have to give some territory to win peace, among them Crimea. Do you stand by that? And I know that the former NATO General Secretary today has told you that he does not agree, and he believes in territorial integrity of the Ukraine. How will you deal with that with your allies? And do you stand by that Ukraine have to give?
Former Secretary General happens to be right here, you know, so they can't put words in his mouth. He's been a great general, frankly. It was because that's what you are. Really, you're a general. But he's been a great Secretary General. We had a tremendous relationship, very successful, and I think he could speak for himself. He's right here.
But do you still agree that Ukraine have to give some territory away to win peace?
Well, it depends what territory. They've been fighting. They've lost a lot of territory. We'll do the best we can, working with Ukraine. We'll do the best we can. But they lost a lot of territory. When you say Crimea, that was handed over during a president named Barack Hussein Obama. That had nothing to do with me, Crimea. That was 11 years ago with Obama. And they made a decision. There wasn't a bullet fired. There was no fighting. There was no anything. They just handed it over. Now they say, well, can you get it back? I think that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. That was given by Barack Obama when he was president, not by Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President. The peace proposal that you put on the table, it's a 30-day ceasefire proposal. Your national security team presented it to both Ukraine and Russia. 2 months ago, Ukraine agreed to that ceasefire proposal immediately. Russia has not. And my question is Russia the obstacle to peace based upon that, just getting to that 30-day ceasefire?
I don't think so. I think that they both want peace right now. They're ready to do something. We'll see what happens. Complicated, very complicated. But I think they are both very much looking to make a deal. Marco, what would you say?
Well, first of all, what was put before our partners was options to discuss about things that it would take to end a war. this war is endable. Both sides just have to agree to it. We've shown them a pathway forward. We've discussed those ideas. It was a good meeting yesterday. There'll be good meetings over the weekend. We've shown them the finish line. We need both of them to say yes. But what happened last night with those missile strikes should remind everybody of why this war needs to end. It's horrible those missiles landed. What's even worse is there are today people that were alive yesterday that are not alive today, because this war continues, and the president wants to stop it. And everyone should be thanking the president for being a peacemaker and trying to save lives. That's what we're trying to do here. It's not our war. We didn't start it, as you know. But we're trying to end the dying. We're trying to end the destruction. And we've shown the path forward. We can see the finish line, but both of them have to get there. We're going to do everything we can to help them get there, but they have to ultimately say yes. Both
And we are using a lot of pressure on both. You know, if you think we're just in there because we're nice people, and we are nice people, but we're using a lot of pressure on both.
What concessions, Mr. President, and to your national security team, what concessions has Russia offered up thus far to get to the point where you're closer to peace?
Stopping the war, taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
Mr. President, if you are going to take down the tariffs, what do you want Norway to buy more of from the U.S.?
To buy more? Well, you don't need snow. You don't need skis. You don't need ski champions either, right? You have a lot of them. We just want to keep the relationship the way it is. We've had a great relationship. I think now maybe closer than ever, but we've had a great relationship with Norway. I think just keep it the way it is, kid. You can't do better.
Really? Not even by, say, 5%?
Well, if they want to give us some additional concessions, that's okay. You can't do much better. Yes, yes.
Mr. President, you had a long meeting with Norway today. You said that Norway is doing a lot of things right, but on the Ukraine, if I can ask both you and the Prime Minister, did you find common ground today on Ukraine and the peace plan?
Totally. It's totally common ground. The Prime Minister can speak about it, but I can just say he wants to see people stop dying more than anything else, and he'd like to see it end. He's going to help us end it.
Mr. President, can I say that to move towards an end of this war, U.S. engagement is critical, and President Trump made that possible. That is clear. That is obvious. It's really happening. Now, the important thing is that both parties have to know that they have to deliver, and they have to feel the pressure to deliver. Ukraine is under attack. They are defending themselves. Lives are being lost. And we believe very firmly that there needs to be a ceasefire, the initiative taken by the U.S. Some time ago. It needs to be respected. And then to move on to something which both parties can own. That is the complicated part in such a dramatic war. And here I believe Europeans and Americans working together, as we do much closer now. And I salute the team of President Trump of being, open in that process. We had a good discussion on this today, and then we have to move on, and we cannot lose time because this is too much drama happening. One thing is people losing their lives, but it is a bad thing for Europe, and it's a bad thing for the world to having such a broad conflict going on. It can have ramifications far beyond Ukraine.
Mr. President, follow-up question. Mr. President, I forgot my question. I wanted to ask about.
It's all right. That happens to the
It
best of
happens
us.
sometimes, yeah. No, Mr. President, I wanted to ask about the. Zelensky has said that he wants more Patriot missiles. So far, has been no response from the United States. If you, as the United States, decides to pull out of negotiating for peace, trying to broker peace, does that also mean a no on Patriot missiles, a no on sharing intelligence with Ukraine?
Let's see what happens. I think we're going to make a deal. And if we make a deal, that'll be wonderful. We won't have to worry about your question. You can ask that question in 2 weeks, and we'll see. But I think we're getting very close. The Prime Minister feels the same way, and we'll hopefully not have to answer that question.
Mr.
President, Norway is the third country to be officially invited to the White House after Liberation Day. Why did you invite Norway so soon to the White House?
Because I like them. And I like your Prime Minister, and I like the way your government runs, and I respect the King. He's highly respected in Norway. It's a great thing, not an easy thing to do. He's done a great job. Yeah.
Would you like an invitation to visit the king?
Absolutely. You get me that invitation.
I just told the president he's welcome to visit Norway.
President Trump, first like farm
Yeah,
you said before that you like the Norwegian Petroleum Fund, and I'm wondering if that has been up for discussion today, the way that we have structured our money and whether.
Well, this fund was created in the late 1990s to save for future generations the income from oil and gas. Norwegians should continue to work as hard, dedicated, innovate and move forward, despite having these incomes, which we happen to be in the period or history where we can harvest, and we have transferred that into investments, half of them, by the way, here in the United States. So I think this is a model which we have been able to explore. If we can share experiences, and we do with our colleagues in the US, you never copy this one-to-one, but there can be techniques and way of working that we have used in organizing our fund. Jens Stoltenberg was the finance minister when the first dollar entered that fund. So he is a safe hand to have as a finance minister today. What do you say?
No, and as you said, Mr. Prime Minister, we are ready to sit down with the US to also work with them on if they want to establish a sovereign wealth fund, because we have a good experience with our fund. And I think that one example of how we work together with the United States is that half of the fund, close to $1 trillion US, are invested in the United States, mainly in equity, but also some in fixed income, including government bonds. So this is an expression of trust in the United States, expressed by the strong investment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Then just briefly on Ukraine, since it was mentioned, we had a very good and extensive discussion about Ukraine, the path forward to peace. And as the Prime Minister said, we commend the US for pushing forward to try to find a negotiated solution. At the same time, we need to continue to support Ukraine, and therefore I'm proud that Norway has actually tripled the military support to Ukraine, and this year we will allocate close to $8 billion US to Ukraine. That will strengthen them and also their hand on the negotiating table.
I may add to that, if there's a peace, and there will be a peace, we have a common responsibility in securing democratic Ukraine for the future, and the best security guarantee they can have is the ability to defend themselves, and we are investing in that.
Mr. Prime Minister, if I may,
As it relates to tariffs, Mr. President, when you unveiled your reciprocal tariffs on April the 2nd, the tariff rate for Norway was 15%. Based upon your conversations that you've had today with the Prime Minister, do you see that tariff rate coming down from what you proposed just a few weeks ago?
Well, they have a great fund of $2 trillion. It's a big fund, and they don't have any debt. So I think they'd probably be willing to pay us more than that, I hope.
Are the two nations in agreement?
Mr. President,
Yes.
in 2018, your former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for an end to Russian occupation of Crimea. Why has this administration changed its stance on territorial concessions for Crimea?
Well, the war started. It would have never started if I were president. This is a war that is horrible. All wars are horrible. This one is in particular bad. And I don't know that you can ever say there's going to be a winner to this, because so many lives have been lost. Not only soldiers, I mean, a lot of lives have been lost. I think that we want to do one very simple thing. It would have never happened if I were president. Zero chance it was going to, and it didn't. People say, how do you know that? Number one, it didn't happen. We never even discussed it. I would talk to Putin about it. It was the apple of his eye. Ukraine was the apple of Putin's eye, but there was never even a thought that he'd go in. And I think he understood that I would not be happy if he did. And it was only when I got out, and when you mention what happened to Ukraine years ago under President Obama and a vice president that was also president later, unfortunately for this country, what happened is large chunks of land were given up, and it was called Crimea, and that was a big thing. That was a big moment. But this isn't my war. This is Biden's war. This is a war that Biden was president when this war happened. But I'm trying to put out the fire, and I think we'll be successful. And if we do, we're going to save a lot of lives. Otherwise, and the Prime Minister had a statement. He said, This is just a point in time. We're very lucky because this is a point, and if this doesn't happen, this could go on for a long time.
Mr. President, will you have meetings with other world leaders when you're in Rome, sir?
Future Democrat president?
I don't think he will. I think he wants to make peace. I think he wants to end it, and I feel pretty confident of that. But we're gonna know pretty soon.
Mr. President, will you have meetings with other world leaders when you're in Rome?
Yes, I will.
Which leaders do you want to meet, sir?
Well, I'd like to meet them all. That would be nice. I'd like to take care of all of them, but we have many of them there, and they all want to meet. They want to meet about trade. And we are making some great inroads and great deals. You might want to speak about that, Mr. Secretary.
We had a very successful bilateral meeting with the Republic of South Korea today. We may be moving faster than I thought, and we will be talking technical terms as early as next week as we reach an agreement on understanding as soon as next week. So South Koreans came early, they came with their A game, and we will see if they follow through on that.
President, have you rounded up your first 100 days?
Do you think you deserve the Nobel Peace Prize if you manage to create
Do I deserve the Nobel Peace?
If you manage to create peace?
Well, maybe for the Abraham Accords. I don't want to get ahead of myself on this one, but they say for the Abraham Accords, and by the way, speaking of that, we're going to be filling it up. A lot of countries want to come into the Abraham Accords. You know, we have 4, and Biden did nothing on that one, too. It's the same 4. But they're great countries, and they were brave doing it, and it's worked out very well, and we're going to be filling up the Abraham Accords. They're going to be, I think, filling it up very rapidly. Martha,
Mr. President,
could you say something about that?
There's great, enormous opportunity to grow the Abraham Accords. But I would just point to one thing. Of all the leaders in the world today, no leader is working harder to prevent wars or end them than President Trump is right now. That's why we're talking to Iran. That's why we're engaged with Ukraine and Russia. It's the desire to prevent these wars from breaking out and to end the ones that exist already. And again, I just think it's tremendous for our country to be led by a president who desires to bring peace and establish peace and protect peace. So it's hard work.
Mr. President,
You know, Marco just mentioned something that maybe we should talk about for just a second, if we could, Mr. Prime Minister. And you're involved in it, too, because you've been involved in the world and peace. But I think we're doing very well with respect to Iran, and we're having very serious meetings. And there are only 2 options, and the one option is not a good option. It's not a good option at all. And I think we're doing very well on an agreement with Iran, but that one, we're doing a lot of things, I will say, but that one is well on its way. We could have a very, very good decision, and a lot of lives will be saved.
Mr. President, on the economy, there was a slowdown as it relates to home sales in the month of March, the slowest pace since 2009. Is that an economic indicator, and perhaps the Treasury Secretary can weigh in on this as well, is that an economic indicator that concerns you about the broader U.S. economy?
No, they had very good numbers on housing today, extremely good numbers, and that's despite interest rates, because, you know, if you look at what happened, everyone said, oh, I said I was going to get prices down. I did. Energy just hit $1.98 in a couple of states. It's way down. Energy's down, and we're about $64 a barrel. When I came in, and we were looking at $89, $90, $95. And by the way, that helps us solve the war, too. Having those energy prices is a big incentive for Russia to also agree with solving the war problem. Groceries are down. When I was with you 2 months ago, you were complaining about eggs. I said, I just got here. I was here for about a week when the press started saying about eggs have gone through the roof. I said, I just got here. Tell me about eggs. And they happened. They went through the roof, and you couldn't get them. So we just had a big Easter egg hunt at the White House. Thousands and thousands of eggs, and the price was down 87%. So we did a great job. Housing is doing very well. We should lower interest rates. That's the Fed. I hope they lower interest rates. That's a smart thing to do. Be ahead a little bit, although already it's a little bit late. But in the end, we just have a great country. We have a very strong country, and we have every other country. I can't think of one country that doesn't want to negotiate a deal. And they either negotiate a deal or we set a deal that we think is fair. Because we don't have to go through all of these. It would be physically impossible. You know, you have so many people that really understand it, which is a very small group of people here. And we are going to, at some point, just set prices for deals. Some will be tariffed. Some treated us very unfairly. They'll be tariffed higher than others. But we've been ripped off for many, many years. The United States has been ripped off like no country probably in the history of the world has been ripped off for 45, 50 years. And countries have gotten rich by doing that with the United States. We've taken care of their militaries, and military is another subject we talk about. We're not going to make that subject to any of the deals. But, you know the same countries that I do where we virtually take care of their military and then don't get treated fairly on trade. So the people, and I don't blame those countries, I blame the people that sat at that beautiful desk right behind you, because those people didn't do the job for this country. And they let us lose $4 billion a day on trade. We were losing $4 or $5 billion a day on trade when I got here. And now we're going to be much better than breaking even, and we're going to be making $4 or $5 billion a day on trade. So, but I don't blame any country, not the worst of them. And we were abused by countries. I blame the President of the United States that happened to be sitting when these deals were made. Disgraceful. When I was here, we had a great 4 years. We had the most successful economy in the history of our country, my first term. And we were very tough on trade. And with China, as you know, they paid hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. But nobody else ever did that. China paid not 10 cents to any other president. And but not only China, virtually every country got away with murder. And we just can't let that happen. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That was US President Donald Trump there in the Oval Office with the Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. I'm joined now for reaction in the studio here at GB News Westminster by Tobias Ellwood, the former Tory Defence Minister and former chair, of course, of the Defence Select Committee in the last Parliament, as well as my panel, journalist and political commentator Duncan Barks and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. To you first then, Tobias Ellwood. Well, we're very close to a deal on Ukraine. That's good news.
Well, you've been in that room, I think, in the past. You know how these are orchestrated. And some of the riffs that he was coming out with, I'm not surprised to see that Trump is exhibiting some frustration. He set the bar high, said he was going to solve this in 24 hours. And he's learning the hard way that you can't treat this as a commercial deal. You can't use the backdrop of the Oval Office to say, I'm going to command people to actually sign a deal. He said, I want to put this fire out. He could do that by giving the weapon systems to Ukraine that they need to push the bully back. But instead, he wants to strike a deal, not for victory, but simply as a get-out clause so he can then pull away. And that's what's left the rest of Europe scratching their heads saying, what do we do if exactly that happens?
Yeah, Peter Tatchell, what are the terms of this deal? Will Ukraine want to surrender, give away territory like Crimea? He said there that there was no complaint when Crimea was taken originally by the Russians a decade ago.
Well, the first thing is to agree a ceasefire based on current front lines. That would end the fighting, but Putin won't allow it. He is bombing Ukrainian cities every day and every night.
Not with Ukraine. They wouldn't want to allow their current terms to exist, would they?
Well, in terms of a peace deal, a ceasefire, Ukraine is willing to have a ceasefire. Putin is not. He continues to bomb, deliberately targeting civilian apartments, supermarkets, hospitals, schools, and so on. This is a vicious war criminal. I have absolutely no confidence, no trust that anything Putin says will be honoured and agreed. So what Trump and the rest of the world has to do is to get tough. And that means, for example, blocking Russia's secret shadow fleet, which is transporting oil around the world to fund the war effort. Russia needs to be pushed out of the global financial system. Businesses and the government need to be cut completely from the world financial system. And, as some people are suggesting, I know tariffs is a bad news at the moment, but very high tariffs, so 100% or more, should be imposed on any country that trades with Russia. That would bring Russia to the negotiating table, those 3 points, very quickly.
Duncan Barks, I mean, Donald Trump is trying to work with Trump, but he said that he's not happy about the bombing overnight the past couple of days by Russia while peace talks are ongoing. Is patience running thin with Putin for Trump?
And understandably so. You know, actions speak louder than words. I'm in no doubt. I'm not convinced Putin wants any form of peace. I don't think he's serious about it at all. Returning to the issue of Crimea, I think I'm right in saying that it's in the constitution of Ukraine that Crimea will remain part of Ukraine. So this idea that Trump was spouting out earlier today that maybe Russia should hold on to Crimea as sort of some kind of peace deal just doesn't cut any mustard. It just simply won't work. Zelensky's not going to allow that to happen, and rightly so.
And if Trump was in a similar situation, if Russia had taken Alaska, Trump would never agree to surrender Alaska as part of the peace deal.
I always think that's the question to ask Trump. If I was with him again, I would say, how would you react to Trump being taken?
But the thing is, if you allow Crimea to remain in Russian hands, you are simply rewarding the aggressor, aren't you?
I've got to ask you a question, Tobias Hilbert. You know Marco Rubio. You heard him say there that no one is working harder for world peace than Donald Trump in relation to maybe an award, a Nobel Peace Prize for him. Is that the Marco Rubio you remember?
Not at all. I mean, Marco Rubio is an independent thinker. He understands the global situations.
He's the state secretary, of course.
He was in the Senate, the Foreign Services Committee, and he was grasped in understanding the history, the details behind this. The ceasefire is a pause. It's an opportunity to then sit down and have detailed discussions. What Trump is wanting is a fait accompli, a deal right now so we can all walk away. And to hear him spout this stuff, which you hear from all the cabinet members, where they're obliged to say we could only do this if, because of President Trump. It's President Trump's absence of understanding of the history and courting Putin, bringing him in from the cold. That's causing the problems that we then have to deal with, because European security is now going to absolutely get more unstable if America dials back.
Well, just on that, you saw, of course, HMS Prince of Wales leaving the UK on a long tour around the world. Do we have the capability to keep a peace with a reassurance force in Ukraine?
The simple answer to that is no, and we've seen that, and some of us have been calling for an increase in defence spending.
To what level?
At least of 3%, if not more, because it's not just the three traditional domains, Army, Air Force, Navy, Air, Land and Sea. It's also the space domain, the cyber domain. It's actually the types of warfare that we're going to see, the grey zone warfare of clipping those cables under the sea and so on, coercion, cyber attacks. That's the battlefield that we're now going to see, and we're unprepared. But my view on the aircraft carrier, it's being sent to parts of the world. Yes, we have an interest in that security, but the focus is on the Middle East and Europe as well.
Where's it going, the carrier now?
Well, that I don't know. I'm hesitant to criticise once an operation has started.
Yes.
But ultimately, I would like to see us focus our attention on the immediate security threat, which is Russia.
And I would add that although all those points are valid, the key is the non-violent option of total economic war on Russia. Like we had against the Nazis, like we saw against the Nazis in World War II, total economic war that would non-violently bring Putin to heel without having to hike our defence.
Well, you still need hard power to back any form of soft power or...
Duncan Barks, on trade, there was a suggestion there from one of the people on the Trump team that South Korea will get a trade deal next week.
Interesting, isn't it?
That is interesting. They said they came with their A game. They're getting rewarded with a... That is the first trade deal we have of the 75 countries queuing up for deals we hear from Trump. That is interesting and maybe is hopeful for us all.
It is, and I think Rachel Reeves will be quite happy to hear that in the last hour or so. We know she is very keen, some might say desperate, to get a trade deal with the US as soon as possible. There are issues here. I mean, certainly the British farmers will have an issue regarding the kind of meat that might be imported into this country. We often hear about chlorinated chicken. There's also cheap beef. We don't want to sell our farmers down the river. So that needs to be noted. But I think from a political point of view, if we can get a trade deal as soon as possible, that would be a good thing for this government, because let's be honest, financially and economically, it needs some good news.
Tobias Helwood.
Well, this bit about tariffs, I'm not sure it's understood. that actually when you place tariffs on imports, it's the American people that pay more for these things. And when the prices then go up, people then don't buy these things. So then the consumers that then suffer. If you put tariffs on aluminium that's coming in to make airplanes, it means that all the tickets of airplane travel will then go up. And this, I think, the penny is now dropping in the White House to say that this entire approach is not going to work. I'm afraid, having flashbacks of what Liz Truss tried to do in Britain with the markets and so forth. Indeed, Republicans behind the scenes saying, hang on a minute, this isn't good for America. In fact, this is un-American. No other American president has gone down this road to this extent.
Yeah, but Peter Tatchell, I mean, going back to the issue of the issue of Ukraine and Russia, Trump says both want peace. I mean, he wants peace, doesn't he? He comes from a position of trying to end the wars quickly. He's got basically 2 years before he could be a lame duck president. You know, he comes from the right place, doesn't he, Trump?
Well, Trump wants peace, in large part, to burnish his own legacy and credentials.
Yeah. It's cynical.
It's cynical. He's mouthing those words. But if he really wanted peace, he would wage total economic war on Russia to force Putin to the negotiating table. And he's not doing that. You know, those oil tankers, those shadow fleets around the world, exporting Russian oil to countries, giving money that Putin then uses to fund the war, they could be stopped. But Trump is not doing that.
You're never too far away from the ego of this man. I mean, it's barely below the surface. You know, you hear this idea about the Nobel Peace Prize. He used that opportunity to have a pop at Obama and Biden. You know, any given opportunity to just kind of polish the ego of Trump, he always grabs hold of it with both hands.
Do you think, finally to you, Tobias Ellwood, is peace around the corner between Russia and Ukraine?
No, quite the opposite. I think we're going to see no ceasefire, certainly agreed. We saw Putin is not interested. Let's go firm on here on what Putin wants to do. He actually wants the control of all of Ukraine and beyond. That isn't the grounds for sorting out some form of ceasefire, let alone long-term peace.
Well, Tobias Ellwood, thank you for joining us today, and also Duncan Barks and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Now, after the break, today the King issued a letter of endorsement for Ed Miliband's Climate Change Summit. But is it right that the monarch gets involved in all area of politics, which is increasingly politically contentious? I'll be joined by renowned royal biographer Tom Bower. Do stay with us.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, London hosted an international summit on energy security this afternoon as the Prime Minister announced a £300 million investment to boost Britain's offshore wind industry. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband also addressed attendees, reading out a surprise and unusual message of endorsement from the King. But should His Majesty have got involved? I'm joined now by author and a biographer of the King when he was Prince Charles, Tom Bower. Tom Bower, what's your take on this? I've got the statement here, which was given out today with Buckingham Palace. Charles R signed it, and he talks about the transition to cleaner energy for our planet, and so it goes on. When you've got Kemi Badenoch disavowing the net zero target for 2050, why is the King getting involved in this area of politics?
Well, I agree with you. I'm very surprised. I thought he'd by now learnt his lessons. He shouldn't get involved, especially with somebody as controversial as Ed Miliband, who is driving this country, according to many reasonable people, to economic bankruptcy.
Well, Miliband would dispute that, but that is a contentious space, isn't it?
Well, it is, and that's the reason why the King shouldn't get involved. I mean, Miliband isn't hosting it because he wants some reasonable debate. He is a zealot who believes in one side, and I don't believe the King is a zealot to destroy British industry. And if you take Miliband this morning on the radio circuit, he wants to destroy agriculture too, because he doesn't want to have gas as part of our... And you need gas to make fertiliser, so he wants us farming to be destroyed too.
You've written acclaimed biographies of Prince Charles when he was Prince Charles. He used to write what are called black spider memos to ministers. Some of them emerged under freedom of information laws, didn't they?
Well, they did. I mean, he was an interventionist. He intervened not only on environment, but on natural foods, on architecture, education, everything. But that was when he was prince. We all thought when he became king, he made a statement saying that he realised he now had to stay neutral. I don't understand why he got involved in this. I think he was badly advised, and I think it was wrong of Miliband to read it out.
Yes, well, Miliband probably felt he had to, given he had a letter here from the King. One has to present it, and it almost maybe endorsed what Miliband is saying.
He asked for it.
Yes, but maybe he asked for it. We don't know that. Do you know that?
Well, of course, the King wouldn't have given it without being asked by the government.
So you think the government asked for this statement?
Of course, yeah. I mean, for Miliband, he needs support. After all, he's so unpopular and being found out all the time. For the King to support him is a huge political plus, and I don't. For that very reason, Buckingham Palace should not have become involved.
It's a political risk, isn't it? Because this area there is debate. No one denies, I think, anymore global warming, but how to deal with the problem is definitely under discussion.
Especially under this government, which is taking a very extreme line, which is to effectively de-industrialise Britain. And the King should not have become involved. I think it was a great mistake of his advisers. He probably was very tempted, and he should have been told, it's not a good idea, Prime Minister.
And finally, the late Queen would have not gone anywhere near this.
Absolutely not. No, of course she wouldn't.
Because she had those audiences.
And nor would the King, though. When he first got into the palace, he said he wouldn't get involved. Suddenly he's involved. It's a great mistake.
Well, Tom Bower, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News, and great to see you in the studio. Now, just 1 week to go until the local elections. What's the state of the race? One man who thinks he knows is Robert Hayward, a Tory peer and a renowned pollster, chuckling away next to me there. His analysis suggests it could be a bruising night for both main parties. And what about those disruptor parties? Could Reform UK turn out to be more than just a protest vote, or is their rise just a flash in the pan? Joining me now in the studio is that man himself, Tory peer and pollster, Lord Hayward. Lord Hayward, please talk us through your predictions.
My assessment is that next Thursday night, Friday, we will see Reform being the largest party in terms of the number of councillors returned across. There are other elections as well, but let's deal just with county councils. that will result in the Conservatives, who had a phenomenal year in 2021, losing several hundred seats, because in 2021 it was the vaccine bounce. Boris was the absolute flavour. He had results which no political party have achieved in decades. So the Tories lose, Reform pick up seats. Labour, who had a disaster in 2021, I don't think are going to make any progress whatsoever.
None at all?
No, I think they might be up a few, they might be down a few. And I think the Lib Dems and the Greens will also have, by their standards, a good evening.
Gosh. But Reform to do the best?
Yes, no question. They start almost with zero. There's the odd defection, but in effect, they start with zero. And they will do the best at the expense of the Tories losing seats, but that was inevitable given what happened.
I think we've got a graphic on screen, or we can show one on screen now, of what you think the forecast might be at next week's local elections. If we can pull it up now, maybe it's there. The Tories down, maybe, yes, there we have it there, between 475 and 525. Labour, broadly where they were. Greens up 40, but look at Reform UK. My goodness me, that is a moment in politics, isn't it? That's an earthquake, if that happens.
It is. And the thing is that Reform will be taking the seats in large part in places like Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Staffordshire, Durham, like Lancashire, which historically have been regarded as Labour territory.
We don't really want to mention areas on this show, but certainly, The evening will start, of course, with the Runcorn by-election result.
It will.
And what's your position on that?
I'm leaving it to people to decide. I won't call specific things, partly because of the law. I have to be fairly careful about what I say. But I think it's been said who are it's a Labour-held seat, and we know who the two main contestants are.
It's Reform versus Labour, isn't it?
If the law allows you to say so, yes.
Well, the Tories
be very cautious on
But it
that.
feels that way, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Are we looking at a country divided into two, a clear north-south split between these different...
I think overwhelmingly, yes. There will clearly be exceptions. But I think what we're looking at is, as you say, a nation divided with Reform and Labour fighting out one part of the country and the Conservatives and Lib Dems fighting out others. But there'll be exceptions.
And, of course, some seats, they aren't actually holding elections, are they, as we know, because of the shake-up? I think 10 or so, many ways where Reform might be stronger. What lessons can we take to the general election from this?
None. A general election is 4 years away. There will be all sorts of politics, which we'll discuss in here, no doubt, in the meantime.
OK. Rob Hayward, Lord Hayward, thank you for joining us tonight. And, of course, Tom Bauer, too. And here's the list of all those candidates in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election. Danny Clark, the Liberal Party. Chris Copeman, the Green Party. Paul Duffy, the Liberal Democrats. Peter Ford, the Workers' Party of Britain. Sean Houlston, the Conservative Party. Karen Shaw, the Labour Party. Michael Williams, the independent candidate from the Independent Party, and Sarah Pochant from Reform UK. Now, after the break, Rosie Duffield, who was ostracised by the Labour Party for standing up for women's rights and is now an independent MP, spoke to me earlier for my podcast, Chopper's Political Podcast. She didn't hold back in her criticism of the Prime Minister.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
An unsettled spell of weather over the next few days across southeastern parts of Europe. Heavy showers and thunderstorms, but elsewhere mostly settled, plenty of sunshine. The odd shower affecting parts of Greece, also the Adriatic coastline. These could be heavy and thundery, but as we shift our way further west, mostly settled thanks to the Azores high, plenty of sunshine, though it just could be quite breezy at times across Madeira and Tenerife. The heavy showers are set to continue into Saturday, but from Sunday, lots of sunshine and feeling warm in that sunshine too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Pretty similar day tomorrow for most parts of the UK. The main exception will be for Northern Ireland, where it will be quite a soggy old day, thanks to these weather fronts wrapped around an area of low pressure. They're only slowly chugging in, though, so it's going to be hard to shift once the rain moves in this evening across Northern Ireland, lasting for much of tomorrow. Some of that rain will fringe eventually into western Scotland, and the cloud is thick enough in eastern areas for the odd bit of drizzle, but for most places it's it a dry night. Some mist and fog may form as temperatures dip down well into single digits, actually, in many towns and cities, and rural spots may even see a touch of frost. Not so cold further west because we'll have the cloud, the breeze picking up and the outbreaks of rain, which will last, as I said, for most of the day in Northern Ireland tomorrow. And some of that rain will get into the west coast of Scotland. The Outer Hebrides turning quite damp. Quite a grey start across eastern Scotland. Down the eastern side, that thick cloud in the morning could produce a little drizzle. The rain's likely to be much heavier for Northern Ireland with that breeze picking up too. Some sunny spells over the Midlands, southern counties of England, a few mist and fog patches, but they shouldn't last too long at this time of year. They'll be disappearing by early to mid-morning, I'd have thought. The cloud will increase a little over Cornwall, Pembrokeshire, Anglesey. A little bit of drizzle is possible here. It's a wet day for Northern Ireland and that rain pepping up in western Scotland. The cloud in eastern areas should break up a little more, so for many central and eastern parts, a dry and a bright day, feeling quite warm. Temperatures getting into the high teens, but a cooler feel for Northern Ireland. And again, some of those North Sea coasts will be pretty fresh. Now, by Saturday, that zone of rain from that weather front has only slowly crept its way a bit further east. So a dull, damp start for Scotland. There'll be some showers for England and Wales, but many eastern parts of England having another fine day on Saturday. And again, we could squeak up to 18 Celsius. Should be a dry day for Northern Ireland as well, with some sunny spells coming through and turning warmer for most of us on Sunday.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Now, earlier today, I spoke with the independent MP, Rosie Duffield, who found herself ostracised in the Labour Party for her stance on trans and women's rights before she eventually quit last September. Here's a snippet of that interview.
Feel when that ruling came out last week from the Supreme Court?
I think I can speak for most of my family's friends who are involved with it. We were obviously elated and relieved, but then actually we've been exhausted by it all. It's taken its toll, and a lot of people have been quite alone in the last few days, if I'm honest.
Yeah, a bit flat, because, well, how it's implemented is the key question next. Some vindication, though.
Yeah, but then we see those placards calling for various people's death or to be, urinated on. That's not nice.
What was this?
There was a big protest in
Parliament Square. And the adored words on the suffragette statues, which is slightly... have you been reached out to by any Labour women? Have they said, Rosie?
Only my friends, but nobody that's now claiming that they always agreed on the issue.
Yeah, and you know your friends are. J.K. Rowling been in touch?
Of course, yeah.
You're on a WhatsApp group? What did she say?
Yeah, I can't tell you what she says, but we're in a friends group. Yeah.
Just going back to Prime Minister's questions this week, is Kevin Baird not right when she said to Keir Starmer, "Do you have the balls to back women?"
She was quite forthright, wasn't she? I think it would be nice to see a clear statement from Keir Starmer, a clear belief, or something that we could see is definitely not necessarily an apology to women, but an explanation as to why he hasn't been more clear so far. He's flip-flopped around this for the last few years, and hasn't been.
Yeah, and even in the past week, since that ruling in the Supreme Court, he did, I think, a dozen tweets on social media, not one about this big... The topic of the week has been that ruling.
I think him and a lot of the people in the cabinet now have always seen it as a fringe issue. They wish it would go away. It's a bit awkward, a bit difficult to talk about. You know, it was a culture war and that, you know, it wasn't really up there with the important political subjects. But actually, people's everyday lives have been affected by things like access to sport and changing rooms. So it is important.
And that's why it also gets to the heart of what is a woman and the fight that women have had for the past 100 years for equality. How did it feel when he wouldn't apologise to you? Of course, it was a Tory asking a Labour person to apologise. That's always a difficult conversation. But he wouldn't say sorry, would he?
Nothing's changed. If I was, you know, as a politician, to be asked the same thing, he's been asked, what, for 3, 4, 5 years even. Has he spoken to me? Has he apologised to me? What's our relationship like? To nip that story in the bud, usually your advisor just sort of write a statement or just say, just issue a bit of an apology or say something nice. And politically, he's let it spin out for all these years. It's just a bit mad. I don't need an apology, but politically, and even it would be nice manners, if he did just sort of speak to me or say, it was really difficult for you. Just an acknowledgement, I guess.
In PMQs, the camera editor filmed you shaking your head. Let's have a look at your reaction to that.
So will he now apologise to the member for Canterbury, the very brave member for Canterbury, for hounding her out of the Labour Party simply for telling the truth?
Mr. Speaker, I've always approached this on the basis that we should treat everyone with dignity and respect, whatever their different views.
So you saw the reaction there. You're just shaking your head and slightly scowling, I'm afraid, Rosie. What were you thinking?
I can't say what I was thinking because it's a bit rude, but I was trying to get my questions sorted because I was bobbing up and down for.
So you were trying to get in, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, right, I've got to make this quick because he's taking a long time to answer things, and you know, I might have kind of a minute or something to get this question right. So I was trying to do that, but also I was doing a bit of eye rolling because it is just quite frustrating.
Why won't you say sorry? Yeah. When did you last speak to Keir Starmer?
Oh, gosh. Just before the election, there were months and months of negotiation about whether we could have a conversation, and one of the whips managed to get me in front of him. And I think I had 17 minutes, and that was after 4 years of trying.
So May last year, May or June last year?
Something like that. I couldn't exactly tell you when, probably May. And he just looked at me like I was an alien. I mean, he often does. I don't think he has any concept of this particular issue or what people in the party have been put through over it, actually. And we're not just, it doesn't really matter what happens to me. I've got a good job and a platform, but we're talking about the Darlington nurses, the case that everyone knows about.
What's that, remind us again of that?
So it was nurses who simply wanted to change their uniform and, you know, women have issues that are intimate. They don't necessarily want to change in front of a man, and a male doctor was permitted to use the
in the changing room.
Yeah, in the changing room as them, and they've brought a court case. They've brought a tribunal, and hopefully they'll win that.
Well, we'll see where this ruling takes us. But why doesn't he get? Just finally on Keir Starmer, he just sees it as a Tory culture war? Is that what he thinks it is? Is that a right-left battle?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's partly that, but if I'm being absolutely honest, I think we're always accused of being out of touch. If you talk to ordinary people, this issue does come up. And not
men and women, or just women?
Men and women, taxi drivers, you know, ordinary people that you should speak to in your constituency on a daily basis. No matter which side of the argument they're on, they'll still discuss it. It's still interesting to them. And I find it hard to believe that Keir is so far removed. Obviously now he's Prime Minister, it's very different. But as an ordinary MP or even the Leader of the Opposition, I'm just surprised he didn't understand how many people felt so strongly and how many different groups were invested. So he does seem...
Rosie Duffield there on my podcast, out tomorrow morning. Now, a spokesman for the Labour Party told GB News, we're being clear about supporting the Supreme Court ruling. As I said, that full interview out tomorrow on Chopper's Political Podcast, available on all podcast platforms and on gbnews.com from 6 a.m. tomorrow. Joining me now at GB News Westminster studio to discuss this is our panel, journalist and political commentator Duncan Barks and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell, to you first. You were at that march at the weekend. You heard what was said there by Rosie Duffield. Was it that unpleasant?
There may have been, or there were a few people who did bad things, but most of the 20,000 people there were good-natured, simply expressing concern that as a result of this ruling, it will mean that trans people are very uncertain about where they're going to go to the toilet, where they're going to change. There's a fear that that ruling is giving a green light to people who want to do down trans people, and that fear is real. Having said that, I think that a lot of people in this debate have got it fundamentally wrong. Trans women and other women are two different things. So some women are women based on chromosomal sex. Other women, trans women, are based on gender identity. Now, the two are different, but they're equally valid. And all women, including trans women, have a common interest in fighting sexism, misogyny, rape, domestic assault, all the bad things that happen to women.
Thank you, Peter.
We should be working together, not against each other.
Duncan Barks, one quick word. Apology to Rosie Duffield from the PM?
Without question, Starmer's behaved appallingly. She's been treated appallingly. He needs to apologise.
Coming up next, State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. But first, here's the weather. Thank you.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News. Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
First to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good evening. You're watching State of the Nation tonight on GB News with me, Matt Goodwin. On tonight's show,